What if what you call love was nothing more than a disguise, a seductive mask for a much darker instinct? Nietzsche challenges us to consider that love, so celebrated as purity and surrender, might merely be an illusion created by the will to power, that invisible impulse driving us to dominate, control, and shape others according to our needs. Do we truly seek the beloved's well-being, or deep down, do we simply desire to see them submit to our universe of desires and expectations? When we fall in love, we believe we're experiencing something sublime, but Nietzsche whispers in our ears, what if this isn't love, but merely a game of forces disguised as tenderness? This question cuts like a blade, forcing us to look inward and confront the raw, uncomfortable side of our relationships. Here we'll walk an uncomfortable but liberating path. We'll question romanticism, expose jealousy, reveal possession, and see the cruelty hidden in what we call affection. Nietzsche doesn't write to console, he writes to awaken. If this reflection resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and join this journey to love's darkest and most truthful heart. What we call love might simply be a fragile invention constructed to make our own solitude bearable. Nietzsche observed that behind romantic idealizations lies a primitive need to survive, perpetuate the species, seek recognition, and above all, escape the void that haunts us when we're alone. Love, in this sense, emerges as a narrative covering with golden veils what is, fundamentally, pure biology and the instinct for power. From early on, we learn to see love as a promise of completeness. Movies, books, and religions teach us that finding our other half means finding life's meaning. But Nietzsche invites us to distrust these stories. Does the other truly complete us, or do we project onto them what we lack the courage to develop within ourselves? The idea of romantic love might be an escape mechanism, a way of surrendering to another the responsibility for our own existence. Think of a passionate relationship at its beginning, where everything seems brilliant and intense. Hearts race, bodies transform into pure energy, thoughts revolve around that person. But why does this state occur? Nietzsche would say it's not transcendence, but an explosion of instincts. The desire to possess, the urge to be desired, the fear of loss, all compose a dance of forces that isn't as noble as the word love suggests. In reality, love's illusory birth connects deeply to our need to create myths. We create stories for ourselves. He's the person who completes me. Without her, I'm nothing. We were made for each other. And these phrases seem poetic, but they're actually masks for a harsh truth. We seek in others what we lack the courage to find within ourselves. Nietzsche believed love feeds on deficiency. It's not full strength that attracts, but lack. We fall in love because we feel emptiness and project salvation onto another. That's why when we're secure, whole, and free, romantic love seems to lose its force. Passion is largely the child of insecurity. Consider jealousy's appearance early in relationships. It emerges as a sign of care, but it's actually a shadow of insecurity and desire for control. From the beginning, love carries the instinct of possession, and that's precisely where Nietzsche points. We're not just loving, we're trying to dominate. Love's illusory birth also connects to the need for belonging. Solitude for many is unbearable. So we create the idea of someone special who will rescue us from this state. But Nietzsche warned, depending on another to give life meaning is renouncing our own power. By surrendering our essence into someone's hands, we become fragile, and love ceases to be an encounter, becoming a prison. It's difficult to face this because illusion is comfortable. Love's myth gives us hope, gives us stories to tell, makes us feel part of something grand. But like all illusions, it can also break cruelly. How often do we believe we're before eternal love only to discover, after some years, that it was all projection? The breaking of love's illusion hurts precisely because it reveals the truth we didn't want to see. We were more in love with the idea we created of the other than with the person themselves. Nietzsche invites us to look without veils at this moment of illusion's birth, not to condemn love, but to understand it at its root. If we can perceive that what we call love is born from instincts, deficiencies, and power games, we can begin dealing with it more lucidly. It's not about destroying love, but freeing it from masks. After all, what's more honest? Believing in fairy tales that enslave us, or facing love as a field of forces where we can learn to be stronger, more conscious, and less dependent. Nietzsche provokes us to choose the harder path, abandoning illusions and accepting naked truth. And perhaps it's precisely there, in this collision with reality, that the chance to live love differently is born, not as myth, but as transformative experience. For Nietzsche, no human feeling escapes the deep movement of the will to power. This concept shouldn't be understood merely as a desire for political or social domination, but as the vital force that impels us to expand, influence, and shape the world around us. In this sense, love wouldn't be an exception. On the contrary, it would be one of the most subtle and disguised forms of exercising power over another. Think about how we describe love. I want you only for myself. I can't live without you. I need you to be happy. These phrases, spoken in sweet tones, carry hidden demands. What seems like surrender is actually an attempt to imprison. When loving, we frequently desire the other to become an extension of ourselves, to bend to our wills, to live within the space of our expectations. Nietzsche perceived that behind tenderness, there's always a silent demand to be loved back, but not just loved the way we want, when we want, with the intensity we demand. This is no longer surrender, it's a control pact. We call it reciprocity, but deep down, it's a contract of mutual domination, where each tries to impose their way of loving. Love, as a mask for the will to power, shows itself even more clearly in small daily gestures. When someone insists their partner change a habit, when they demand constant attention, when they require a posture that meets their insecurities, all this seems like care, but hides the urge to mold the other. We want them to be what we need, not what they really are. Nietzsche denounced this tendency to transform the other into an object. In romantic love, we speak of soul union, but what often happens is the annulment of singularity. The beloved person stops being free to become a character within the narrative we create. I love you almost always hides, I want you to be mine. Even sacrifice, so exalted in love stories, can be a disguised form of power. When someone gives themselves completely, it's often not just from generosity, but because they expect recognition, gratitude, and even submission in return. Love becomes a currency of power, a game where each gesture of surrender demands a response confirming one's own importance. This Nietzschean unveiling is uncomfortable because it touches the most intimate layers of our relationships. It's easy to point out power in wars, political disputes, great empires. Difficult is recognizing it in the bed beside us, in couple conversations, in silences loaded with expectation. Nietzsche breaks with the idealized vision and forces us to see that love, largely, is struggle disguised as affection. And here arises an uncomfortable question. Can we love without transforming the other into an extension of ourselves? Nietzsche might respond that this is extremely rare. Most people love themselves through the other. The partner is mirror, stage, food for the ego. The will to power uses love's mask to ensure the game continues without us perceiving its true nature. But this doesn't mean love is merely deception. It means we need to learn to see it without veils, to recognize its essence of power so it doesn't enslave us. When we accept that loving also involves dominating and being dominated, We can begin freeing ourselves from illusions and seeking a more conscious form of relationship. Nietzsche provokes us to tear off the mask and ask, when I say I love you, am I really seeing the other or just projecting my will onto them? Am I offering freedom or just trying to ensure they live within my world? Love as a mask for the will to power forces us to face the truth that often we don't love the other as they are, but as we'd like them to be. This revelation is painful, but it's also the gateway to a more honest and transformative relationship. Nietzsche saw in love not just affection, but a battlefield. When we love, we almost always desire to possess. Desire, which many celebrate as vital flame, is, in Nietzsche's view, a direct expression of the will to power. To desire isn't simply to admire, it's wanting to absorb, conquer, make the other part of our domain. Love, thus, is rarely pure. It mixes with the urge for possession. Think about how we treat those we love. We want proximity, exclusivity, constancy. We demand signs of fidelity, words of affirmation, proofs of surrender. And when we feel the other pulling away, what emerges is jealousy. Jealousy isn't a character flaw, it's a natural expression of the appropriation instinct. Nietzsche would say, jealousy is the most honest confession that we don't just love, we want to dominate. In each relationship, desire emerges as a promise of encounter, but soon transforms into silent dispute. We want the other to desire us with the same intensity. We want to ensure their attention doesn't disperse, that their gaze doesn't wander beyond us. Jealousy is born from this fragility. It denounces that we don't seek just love, but absolute centrality in the other's universe. Nietzsche would invite us to observe when we're bothered because our partner smiled too much at someone or because they received an unexpected message. What's at stake isn't just affection, it's power. Jealousy shows the fear of losing dominion, of ceasing to be the center. We want not only love, but total exclusivity. And here's the contradiction. We say love is freedom, but in practice we demand prison. The other must be free, but only within the fence we build. This paradox reveals what Nietzsche would call love's cruelty. It promises greatness, but frequently reduces both to guardians of invisible possession. Desire also carries this ambiguity. On one hand, it vitalizes us, pushes us toward life. On the other, it transforms the other into an object of satisfaction. We desire, and in desiring, we consume. The question is, do we love the other, or love what they awaken in us? If they stop provoking desire, if they no longer correspond to the role we projected, love fades. What does this reveal? That possession was always at the center. Nietzsche exposes jealousy as the clearest proof of love's nature. We don't feel jealous just because we love too much, but because we see in the other something we believe to be ours. Its property logic applied to the human soul required fidelity, eternal promises, exclusivity pacts, all are possession instruments disguised as devotion. Perhaps that's why so many love stories end in resentment. We love hoping for fusion, but the other insists on being other. We love believing we possess, but the other insists on escaping, on moving, on existing beyond us. And each time this truth wounds us, pain is born, rancor, the sensation of betrayal. Nietzsche provokes us to accept this reality courageously. Desire, possession, and jealousy aren't deviations from love. They're its essence. Recognizing them is the first step to living more lucidly. We can even continue desiring, possessing, feeling jealous, but no longer under the illusion that this is pure and noble. It's simply human, all too human. The question Nietzsche leaves us is disturbing. Is it possible to love without possessing? Or does all true love carry with it an instinct for dominion? Perhaps the answer isn't in eliminating jealousy or possession, but in recognizing them, learning to laugh at them, transforming them into consciousness. Only then can we move toward a less naive, more honest and paradoxically freer love. Nietzsche said that loving isn't just an act of giving but also of cruelty. This statement sounds strange at first glance because we were educated to see love as the territory of kindness, surrender, care. But the philosopher saw, in the root of human relationships, an inevitable dose of violence. This violence doesn't need to be explicit, doesn't always manifest in screams or aggressions. Often it appears in subtle, silent gestures, in the small manipulation games that happen daily within a relationship. When two people fall in love, they begin, consciously or unconsciously, to shape each other. Initially, we call this adaptation. One abandons a habit the other dislikes, alters their way of dressing, changes even their way of speaking. These gestures seem harmless, but Nietzsche would say they're clear signs of a domestication process. Love in this sense is like a gentle struggle. Each tries to adjust the other to their image, impose a rhythm, extract concessions, until the bond stabilizes on terrain of mutual control. Here enters cruelty. The pleasure of molding the other isn't just necessity, it's also a form of enjoyment. There's satisfaction in seeing the partner renounce something for us, in witnessing their obedience, in noting that our preferences take priority in the other's life. Even in apparently healthy relationships, this desire to mold manifests. Do this for me. I don't like when you talk like that. I prefer you not hang around certain people. These phrases, which seem banal, hide a thread of power and a seed of violence. Nietzsche had the courage to point out what almost no one dares confess. There's pleasure in the other's submission. Love makes us feel special not just because we're loved, but because someone bows to our will, because someone renounces something for our sake. This sensation feeds the ego and gives us a feeling of superiority. It's cruel, but it's real. If we look carefully, we'll perceive that this cruelty is present even in gestures of affection. When we ask for exclusive attention, we're depriving the other of dispersing. When we demand fidelity, we're limiting their freedom of choice. When we charge constant declarations of love, we're imposing an emotional obligation. Love, in this sense, always contains tension between freedom and prison, and this prison, even when accepted, carries something violent. Nietzsche also reminds us that often we don't want just the other to love us, but to love us in our way. We don't accept the love they have to offer. We demand they correspond to our expectations, that they fit our narratives. If they don't comply, we feel frustration, anger, resentment. But who gave us the right to demand the other's love adjust to the mold we created? This demand is by itself a form of cruelty. A simple example, when someone says, "If you really love me, you do this for me." This phrase is disguised blackmail, a way to pressure the other to act against themselves in the name of the bond. How often does love transform into this field of subtle blackmail, where each gesture of surrender is exchanged for recognition, and each resistance is labeled as lack of love? Cruelty in love also appears in how we deal with the other's vulnerability. Often we use what we know about them, their fragilities, fears, and insecurities, as silent weapons. A word spoken in cold tone, a comparison, calculated indifference, all are blows we apply without noticing, but which reveal that even in love, there's space for sadism. Love doesn't eliminate the will to power, it just coats it with perfume. Nietzsche invites us to face this truth without masks. This doesn't mean we should condemn love, but that we need to see it with more lucid eyes. Loving is also wounding, is also restricting, is also dominating. The sooner we recognize this, the less we'll be trapped in the illusion that effective relationships are pure and angelic. It's important to perceive that this cruelty isn't an accident, but part of the bond's very nature. Love doesn't exist without conflict. It's born from the fusion of different desires, and all fusion involves tension, dispute, renunciation. Romantic idealization promised us that love is harmony, but Nietzsche reminds us it's, before anything, confrontation. To love is to accept the daily war between wills, the continuous negotiation between freedom and prison, the power alternation that never resolves completely. When we understand this, we have the chance to transform cruelty into consciousness. Instead of denying that we exercise power over the other, we can assume this reality and seek more honest ways to deal with it. It's not about eliminating cruelty. That would be impossible. But softening it, making it clear, avoiding its hiding under kindness's disguise. Perhaps love's true challenge, in Nietzsche's light, is this: recognizing the inevitable cruelty it carries and still choosing to remain. Accepting that loving is also dominating and being dominated, wounding and being wounded, and that only those who look this truth in the face can live love without illusions. Deep down, Nietzsche didn't want to destroy love, but to free us from the fantasies that make us blind and fragile. By exposing the hidden cruelty in affective bonds, he opens space for more lucid love, where we don't expect purity or perfection, but face the reality of the struggle existing between two wills that meet. And here remains the provocation. Have you already recognized the cruelty present in your own way of loving? Nietzsche always distrusted love because he saw in it not just instinct and will to power, but above all, illusion. According to him, we're masters at inventing stories to bear life, and love is perhaps the most sophisticated of these inventions. We create a myth around the feeling, adorn it with beautiful words, with promises of eternity, with vows that defy time. But in essence, what we call love is often just self-deception carefully constructed to protect us from what we most fear: existence's emptiness. Self-deception manifests from the beginning. Upon meeting someone, we project onto them qualities that perhaps don't even exist. We don't see the person as they are, but as we'd like them to be. Passion, in this sense, is less an encounter between two individuals and more a mirror. We love our own projection reflected in the other. This process is so common, we rarely perceive it. We think we discovered the right person, when in truth we created a fiction sustaining our deficiencies. Nietzsche ironized this human tendency to romanticize what is deep down possession instinct. He said love is nothing but an attempt to give noble varnish to what is purely animal. We want to justify desire, attachment, fear of solitude with purity's mask. Self-deception arises because we prefer believing in a comfortable narrative to facing naked truth, that we seek in the other only a way to confirm our own importance. The example of jealousy is revealing. When we feel jealous, we almost never say, "I'm afraid of losing control over you." Instead, we invent more acceptable narratives. "I'm jealous because I love you too much." It's care, it's protection. But Nietzsche would say this is just refined lying. Jealousy isn't love, it's possession. It's pain imagining someone could belong to another and not to us. Self-deception transforms this will to dominion into affection discourse. Daily life is full of these disguises. How often does someone remain in an unhappy relationship, repeating to themselves, "It's because I love"? In reality, they remain from fear of solitude, convenience, habit, or inability to face life without the other. But admitting this is too painful, so self-deception comes as balm. We say it's love when it's actually fear. Nietzsche saw self-deception as a kind of anesthesia. Just as man invented gods to bear absurdity's pain, he also invented romantic love to bear incompleteness's pain. The problem is, this anesthesia charges a high price. It prevents us from living life in its rawness, from seeing the other with lucidity, from assuming responsibility for our own solitude. When we believe in ideal love's myth, we become prisoners. We begin expecting the other to complete us, to give meaning to our existence, to be the answer to our anguishes. But this is asking too much, and inevitably leads to frustration. No human being can carry the weight of being another's life meaning, and when the myth crumbles, when self-deception doesn't sustain itself, what remains is resentment. Nietzsche, however, didn't see love's unmasking as tragedy, but as opportunity. If we recognize self-deception, we have the chance to love differently, without illusions, without demanding from the other what only we can give ourselves. Lucid love would be that which isn't born from the need to fill emptiness, but from the abundance of one who already bears their own solitude. This doesn't mean we should abandon love, but that we should abandon the lie. We can love knowing the other isn't perfect, didn't come to complete us, won't save our life. We can love accepting there will always be instincts, jealousy, desires for possession, but without needing to hide this under purity discourses. This love, although harder, is also freer, because it doesn't depend on illusions. Nietzsche invites us to ask, how many times have I lied to myself in love's name? How many times did I call control care? How many times did I call deficiency passion? And how many times did I cling to the other, not because I really loved them, but because I didn't know what to do with my own solitude? Self-deception might never completely disappear because it's part of human condition. But the more consciousness we have of it, the less we're its victims. Love ceases being escape and can finally become a real encounter between two individuals who don't complete each other, but recognize themselves in their strength and fragility. Nietzsche believed truth liberates even when it hurts. Recognizing self-deception in love is painful, but it's also the chance to live something more authentic. The challenge is having courage to look in the mirror and admit, often I loved less the other and more the illusion I built of them. And here's the question Nietzsche would leave echoing in our mind. Are we ready to love without the anesthesia of lies we tell ourselves? Nietzsche didn't want to destroy love, although his words often sound like hammer blows against it. What the philosopher desired was to free it from the illusions that imprison it, from the masks that make it a farce, and from the myths that condemn us to repeat the same mistakes. After crossing deconstruction, the deficiency that generates it, the will to power that moves it, the possession and jealousy that corrupt it, the cruelty that inhabits it, and the self-deception that masks it, the question remains, does love exist that can be lived without slavery, without lies, and without escape? Nietzsche believed so, but not like the romantic love we were taught to idealize. This liberating love begins with a radical demand, bearing one's own solitude. Those who can't be with themselves will always make the other a refuge, pretext, crutch, and their love ceases being encounter and transforms into escape. Nietzsche reminds us that only those who learn to dance alone can truly dance with another. Love that liberates isn't what seeks to fill a void, but what's born from the abundance of someone who already found meaning in their own life. This perspective completely changes how we look at affective bonds. Instead of demanding the other be the source of our happiness, we recognize they're just a travel companion. Instead of expecting the partner to complete us, we accept we're whole and that love isn't fusion, but coexistence. This recognition doesn't diminish the bond's intensity, but makes it truer, because it doesn't sustain itself on illusions. Nietzsche would say that loving freely is accepting the other as they are, without trying to mold them, without transforming them into mirrors of our needs. It's having courage to let them exist outside us, to allow them to have secrets, desires, worlds we don't share. Love isn't imprisoning, but admiring the singularity that resists our will to control. This is the most difficult point, because loving without possessing seems almost impossible. But it's precisely in this challenge that the possibility of transcendence is found. Love that liberates also demands we abandon the romantic narratives imposed upon us. There are no other halves, no destiny written in stars, no happily ever after. These are stories that infantilize us and make us dependent. Adult, lucid, Nietzschean love knows everything is flux, movement, transformation. It doesn't promise eternity, but intensity. It doesn't cling to possession security, but to conscious surrender's courage. A practical example: instead of saying, "I need you to live," lucid love would say, "I choose to be with you, even though I could live without." This perspective change is fundamental because it transforms the relationship into choice, not dependence. The bond ceases being prison and becomes shared freedom. Nietzsche saw in this a higher form of love, almost an art. To love would be like creating artwork together, not to fill a void, but to expand life. Love isn't medicine against solitude, but celebration of the power of two who meet without ceasing to be one. Of course, this doesn't eliminate pain, jealousy, cruelty, or desire for possession. These elements are part of human nature and will never completely disappear. What changes is consciousness. When we know they exist, we can deal with them more lucidly, without hiding, without lying. Love ceases being illusion and becomes courage exercise. The courage to see the other as they really are and still remain. Nietzsche might say that love that liberates is that which doesn't seek salvation, but creation. Not loving to save oneself, but loving to create something new, experiences, meanings, intensities. It's love as life affirmation, not escape from it. In this sense, love isn't just tolerating the other's existence, but being impelled by them to become stronger, freer, more authentic. And here arises the final question: are we willing to love this way? Because love that liberates demands much more from us than romantic love. It doesn't content itself with illusions, doesn't sustain itself on myths, doesn't tolerate masks. It forces us to face solitude, will to power, jealousy, and self-deception, and still choose to remain. Not because we need to, but because we want to. Perhaps Nietzsche's greatest legacy for love's theme is this: true love isn't that which makes us forget who we are, but that which challenges us to become more. To love, for him, isn't fusion, but expansion. Not dependence, but shared freedom. Not illusion, but creation. And here, at this journey's end, remains a question only you can answer. Do you love because you're afraid of being alone, or because you have the courage to share your freedom with another human being? Throughout this journey, we've seen that love isn't just tenderness, but also instinct, power, jealousy, cruelty, and self-deception. But we've also seen that when unmasked, it can become something greater, not a prison, but a space of creation and freedom. Nietzsche didn't want us to abandon love, but to live it without illusions. And now I ask you, which belief about love has imprisoned you most until today? If this reflection touched you, comment below where you're watching from, share your vision, and subscribe to the channel. Like this video so more people find these ideas and free themselves from illusions that still bind them. Thank you for being part of this deep philosophical community where we don't seek easy comfort, but the courage to look life straight in the face.